It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday, and sorry about the clipboard rattle on that. But yeah, this is going to be a bit of a different take on the Feedback Friday format, just because the nature of this week, the bulk of the comments came from Wellness Wednesday. Which isn't a bad thing in terms of quality comments. It's actually a really good thing. But I want it to be tied into some of the overall feedback I've been getting from other sources. Because for people who only watch the YouTube videos, there's stuff that comes in from Twitter. There's the occasional useful comment on Facebook, stuff that's come in from Twitch chats, that's been started back up again, with the music shows, which I think are going pretty well. We've been working on figuring out how to tweak that format to get around the Twitch very, very unclear rules on music. YouTube is actually easier to navigate in terms of music, especially on streams, than Twitch. Now, they have different demarcations for things that can be streamed live versus playback. So you have to turn, for instance, the Game Awards are coming out and they've already set a thing that you have to turn off your VOD feature if you want to co-stream the Game Awards. And it's been requested that I co-stream the Game Awards. So I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. And Twitch's back end is not the easiest thing. For somebody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, they're going to think I'm talking about a Twitchy back end, and that's okay. But sort of general themes, I have been working really hard on maintaining a positive attitude this last month, because crowd funds can steal your soul, just because, especially for introverts, you spend a lot of time asking people for things. And while a lot of people are really great, there are those people you thought were your friends that don't come through, and those sting. And even, 9 people say yes and help you out, that one feeling of loss, right? That one person that you suddenly discover you actually can't count on. That takes some adulting to process. And then, of course, when you're putting a product out, you get a lot of unsolicited advice, some very helpful and very knowledgeable, and other stuff that isn't so much. And it seems the more uninformed an opinion something is, the pushier people tend to be about, forcing it on you. And this led to a discussion on Twitter about the whole crabs in the bucket phenomenon. The fact that, there's this tendency to try to pull overachievers down. And I don't think it's deliberate. And I think that a lot of the self-help space, or sort of the motivation space, has created nefarious purpose around that observation of the human condition. And my take on it is kinder. I think that we live in an age where, and this may be just general humanity, but right now people are terrified of failure. People are playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win. And those are very different mindsets. If you're playing to not lose, if you're playing to minimize mistakes, you do as little as possible, right? If you're playing to win or playing to advance, you have to be prepared to make some mistakes, to suffer some embarrassments, to take some risks, so that you can also get achievements, because nothing worthwhile is risk-free. And there seems to be a real issue with risk nowadays. And I talk about this all the time, that it comes from a place of, 100% being the expectation, as opposed to a B student society, which I frankly think is more healthy. I would rather have a B student working for me because they know how to make mistakes and recover from them, or they know how to accept making mistakes, as opposed to somebody who always gets everything perfect by staying only with the things they're good at. If someone is getting super high marks on everything all the time, it means they're not challenging themselves. And unfortunately, we have, a society now where that's the paradigm for getting into the best schools and getting employed at these big tech companies like Google and Microsoft. And it's interesting how many blogs are written by ex-employees of those places that talk about that bare minimum, why are you bothering, why are you doing the extra effort, crabs in the bucket phenomenon. And that's why people left those companies surrounding companies that are built on the top 1% of academia, I find, tend to have that, which is why some people like startup culture, because there's not necessarily that. I happen to like startup culture. Everybody has different kinds of stress. I like undiscovered country, which is why I'm pivoting into making a game after two well-received YouTube series, because I sort of hit the point with the YouTube series where it's like, okay, I the content's good and people like it, but I'm feeling diminishing returns in terms of fresh ideas. And I don't like that. That's not my jam. I'm not somebody who chases traffic. I'm not somebody who is just interested in financial gains. I'd probably better off if I was more interested in financial gains. But I want to feel like I don't even know what the word is. As an entertainer from the time I was a child, there's sort of a mindset in terms of performance that you want to just either educate someone, and I hate that term because educate yourself as a charge now, right? You want to either make people think or make people laugh, right? Sure, make people cry sometimes, but I'm not as big a make people cry person. I'm a make people laugh or make people think kind of person. That's just the content I enjoy doing. And we're sort of at a place in gaming, and I've talked about this before, where just talking about stuff, we can't talk about content that doesn't exist. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to make the content. Because one thing I've gotten good at is continuing to just keep on going while people shit all over me. And I had an experience this week where someone with an anime waifu icon called me cringe and said, "Good thing you're good looking." And it was one of those moments that I sat back and sort of savored the moment of, you have a waifu icon and you're calling me cringe? But hey, you think I'm good looking. That's sublimely poetic. And it's better not to deconstruct the tangible details on that one, because it just, the parts of that whole phenomenon are not as sublime as the complicated bouquet that is that lacking in self-awareness. And that's a funny thing about being a woman in the media. When people use perceived attractiveness to insult, there's, when the jealousy comes through that way, or the sense of ownership some less happy people think they have over people just because, we decide to make YouTube videos or games or TV shows or films or whatever. You eventually, you have to learn at some point to separate yourself as the persona, the commodity, versus you as a person. And it's kind of freeing when you can do that and sort of step back and see how people react to the portions of themselves they see reflected in you instead of who you really are and what you really said. And that was that process of, relinquishing control that I talked about on Wellness Wednesday. And there was some really powerful responses to that video. Wellness Wednesday videos take a while to build traffic, but this was a quality versus quantity week in a lot of ways. And one of the comments was when I talked about, dating, don't go out seeking a relationship, just go out to have a good time. One person said, just came out of a bad relationship and divorce and have been reluctant to start dating again. But yeah, your idea about just going out and having fun rings true. Thank you for the inspiration. Things like that really make up for a lot of negativity. And that can't be forced. That just, you get it right sometimes. You get it wrong a lot. So you have those moments where you get it right. And you help someone put away their pain. You don't take away their pain. You don't do it for them. But you offer the inspiration for someone else to go, yeah, you know what? I don't have to feel this crappy. To me, that's what being a content producer, being an entertainer is all about. And, that's powerful. Some other comments were suggesting that I was deleting responses. So I just want to make clear again, I do not delete responses as a rule. If I do, I come on a video and say, I did this, I blocked this user, I deleted this comment, this is why. Because YouTube eats comments for various reasons. I don't understand the various reasons YouTube will kill a comment, but it does. There's nothing I can do about it except make it really clear this isn't me doing it. I'm really sorry when that happens. I can relate to how frustrating that is, but it's not me doing it. It's YouTube, and I have no control over that. I want to read one comment in its entirety because I think it speaks to what a lot of people are feeling right now, especially with how contentious the news has been. There's been a lot of one after the other, after another about stuff that's really upsetting, but actually is really important. And it's important to talk about, and people want to talk about it, but they don't want to get pounced on because it is so tender. And it just seems like one thing after another. We backed off some of the raw crowdfunding stuff on social media just because collectively we were like, people are raw right now, and people need the opportunity to be raw. And it just didn't seem right asking people for money when they seemed that upset about global events. And I mean, for good reason. Again, this is not people making a big deal out of nothing with some of these, legal stuff that's going on right now. The U.S. Criminal justice system, lawsuits, Supreme Court, all that stuff. This is real life. This stuff matters. The minute the new COVID variant got announced, some people canceled their Kickstarter pledges. And I totally get that. People are wondering if they're going to have jobs next month because of this stuff. And there's a potential government shutdown. And to watch that, to see those tangible impacts on people's perceived financial security, that's real. That's not arguing over a damn video game, and we are very sensitive to that. All the more reason we want to make something at an affordable price that people can just have fun with, but I want to read this comment because this one hit me in the feels. This video hit close to home, and not that I think it was particularly aimed at me, but because I do feel a lot of the things in the video. I'm very glad when people can relate to a Wellness Wednesday and not feel attacked. That's sort of the purpose for the video format instead of one-on-one, right? So I'm going to give my 2 cents, even if it goes into some dark places, which it has to in order to really explain things. For me, I'm not trying to convince people they're wrong with the control thing as context. I'm trying to convince people that I'm a pro-social, good faith, legitimate, honest person, and I come with concerns that are worth taking note of. Essentially, I'm just looking for some level of legitimacy. I can relate to that so much. I'll finish the comment and then go back. And that's the most I can do in terms of feeling in control, because I really don't feel that way at all. And I don't really know of anything I can change to actually change it. In a lot of ways, I can't change these things. I can't change my gender or my skin color or my socioeconomic background or my mental health innate characteristics. And because of those things, I don't feel like if things continue going down the path they're on, that I have a place in that world. And I think a good number of people feel that way. And I'd like some legitimacy, so I do feel like I have a place in the world. But even getting that is next to impossible, I find. I'm not a fatalist for what it's worth. I think that the current pop progressive culture will fall apart before we go too far down that road. But still, I have zero control over it. It's entirely out of my hands, and that's a scary feeling. I'm going to attempt to give this commenter and everybody else a sense of control over this, because these are very real feelings. There is a sweet spot between feeling stable and secure and feeling stuck. And there are too many people right now who'll feel stuck in their lives and yet feel completely unstable, completely insecure. Everything's going to be taken away from them at every moment, that sort of fear. And that will affect your health. That will affect your sleep, which will affect your health. You can't have elevated cortisol levels all the time without getting sick. And so these are valid concerns, and they are real. And this is where social environment is so important. And the social environment on the internet, I think, is giving people a false sense that that's all there is. And this is part of the reason I'm being so slow and methodical and get it right the first time with the Song of Sparkle Muffin Discord server. Because collectively, we've been talking about this, and we want a place on that server where people are judged on behavior, not opinions. And wait, where's the line between behavior and opinions? Fair. And that's what we're trying to figure out, how to create a clear code of conduct that is focused on treating people with decency as opposed to right think, wrong think. And the issue with a lot of this social stuff is that certain opinions do rob certain people of their dignity based on innate characteristics. And, some people will argue something is an opinion when we're going to consider it a behavior or an approach. And making it clear from the beginning where the distinction is a process. I do think that the community making the game will spread to the community surrounding the game. And the thing that's cool behind the scenes is that it's very important to me that I foster an environment that people feel like they can speak up. And that takes time. It doesn't happen immediately. There has to be a certain amount of trust. And sometimes I have to take some hits to foster that, and I need time to recharge. I mean, one of the things about crowdfunding is I have to fake extroversion for 30 days. So I'm fucking exhausted right now. Um, it's part of the job. I know how to do it. I also have to know where my limits are and what to do about those limits. You know, I am really looking back. I am really looking forward to going back to writing so that I can listen primarily to the voices in my head more than anything else for hours at a time. That may sound crazy, but that's writing for me. When you're writing spoken dialogue, you actually have to speak the lines in character voice. So I'll sit here at my desk going, this is a Princess Sparkle Muffin line, and this is a Social Justice Warrior line, and this is a Beelzebub line. And yeah, I'll sit there talking to myself. There's a reason cubicle work, shared workspaces are not for me. I need crazy space. But that's my process. Other people, I think, can do it quieter. I can't. I need to, because it's posture and it's movement and it's inflection and that's just my process. And fortunately, I've got people working on this that come from the same place, even if they don't have the exact same process. It's complementary. You don't want everybody with the exact same process, because that means you're getting, two similar points of view. But, there have been caution flags thrown up at some content. There have been some discussions, but for the most part, it's been brought up and we've stayed debating the subject, not attacking the person. People who tend to personalize things are not staying with this project. It's not for you. It's comedy, which means sometimes we are going to have to refine jokes. So, we effectively lampshade a trope so that the audience doesn't feel attacked, or the player doesn't feel attacked by the trope. And finding the line of that is a challenge when you have the eclectic nature of what we're attempting to do. But the entire point of doing that is to validate as many people, as many types of people, and as many individuals as we possibly can. And that's something I find games do and RPGs do extremely well. Because sometimes it's just this one character who's not a super major character, but you sort of see yourself in that character, and it's like, hey, I belong. And that was the whole idea of letting people be NPCs in the game, right? They get to feel like they belong. They can point to that and go, hey, that's me. They are literally represented in a game. That was the whole method to that madness, is to sort of work at that that very real, the commenter said legitimacy. I use the term validation. Commenter, please tell me if they're the same thing or you see them as different. I see validation. Yeah, okay, they could be a little different. So please correct me there. But the other thing we want to do with the game comes from other commenters. There's a lot of commenters on my channel who are on the autism spectrum, have ADHD, are neurodivergent in some way. And certain social circumstances, especially circumstances that they cannot practice for, are quite scary. And a lot of that affects kind of romance and interpersonal stuff. And one of the things I found so inspiring about the Yakuza games is that those games, in a way I haven't seen other games do, make space for the player to make mistakes, sound stupid, commit social faux pas, and tangle up and tangle on. And I'm like, this is a revelation to me. It's not right or wrong answers in dialogue. It's not trying to min-max conversations. It's just being a person and teaching the player, no, have the experience you want here. It's not going to be the end of the world if you fuck this up. In fact, that's sort of the point that these, mobsters who are big action hero, and I mean, even those are ridiculous with the shirt coming off in one rip. Love it. But, there's a lot of gravitas at other times, but day to day, these guys mess up just like everybody else. And I think games can be a practice space for social interaction if they're written thoughtfully. I won't say written well, because there are lots of good ways to write a game. But if they're written thoughtfully, there can be those more private or intimate exchanges that, well, how do I navigate this? Well, this is how different types of people navigate these circumstances. There's no one right way. One commenter who is on the autism spectrum is very panicked about consent, because how do you practice consent? Consent is something you have to be aware of at the time. And yes, this is a way that the world isn't built for people with autism. And again, another very fair concern, because, this commenter pointed out, either you do it or you don't. There's no in between. How do you practice this? And the problem is not that this person is a problem, not the comment. The problem with my answering the question is that it involves an abstraction, and we're dealing with autism spectrum here. So I'm going to do the best I can to bridge that abstraction in the remaining time, and hopefully, but this is really good feedback, because I'm like, this is a learn by doing thing, and games can teach us. Games can help people practice with this stuff. That's why I think good dating sims are invaluable. There are just so few of them, in my opinion, out there. The way to avoid pressuring, the way to practice not pressuring people in one specific thing is to practice not pressuring people generally, right? And this is dovetailing into the original comment of, I want legitimacy, I want my opinions to matter, I want what I want to matter. Everybody does, but where do I find the line between too much pressure and being a doormat? Fair. It is more art than science. Especially in an age where I find that those social skills of, I had a thing on Twitter where I had to repeat to this one guy, he was going down a rabbit hole. There was no winning. I was not going to convince him. And I said, I'm not fighting. I do not want to fight with you about this. I am not fighting you about this. And there's a big difference between I don't want to fight with you and I am not fighting with you. I don't want to fight with you can be wishy-washy. It's sort of, well, I don't want to fight with you, but I'm gonna. Nope. I'm not doing this. That's me. And some people have a lot of problem with that element of my personality. But to me, that means that people know, hey, I'm somebody who puts my foot down, so you don't have to worry that you're pressuring me into something, because I'll let you know. If I give on something, it's by choice, not because I'm feeling forced. And that is something I think needs to be taught more places. Just my soapbox, getting off the soapbox right now. On the internet, it's tough. In person, it's a different kind of tough, but it's still tough because of that non-verbal cues paradigm we live in. I hate that paradigm. Okay, you're giving nonverbal cues. You know what's better than an inference? You know what's better than hinting? Being direct. Yes, somebody might get upset with you. Yes, somebody might reject you there. Yes, somebody might get angry. So what? You were clear. You cannot control if somebody can't handle no, stop, don't. You know? People can get warnings. People get upset about things. They need that legitimacy, so they may not listen the first time. But if they're not listening on the fourth or fifth time, that's about them, not you. Now, how to get better at hearing that no, stop, don't. That's a process called active listening. And that is a process. And my question at the end of this video is, do you want a video on that? Do you want a video on how to really be present when you're listening? Because that's a half hour in itself. That's hours and hours and hours in itself. But, you know, this is one of the things that will be offered sort of one-on-one when we finally get the consent forms in a point where a lawyer will sign off on them. The Leanna Care Service. That's been an odyssey. Yeah, legitimate concerns. I don't like, maybe that's all I can do here. Legitimate concerns. Some of it is environmental. If you feel like there is no space for you in your world, find a different world. This may sound easier said than done, but I've had to do that multiple times, right? I decided, you know, TV was not for me. I didn't like the environment. The comic book industry was not for me. I didn't like the environment. It wasn't that I wasn't good at it. I didn't like the environment. I didn't like the people. I didn't like what was expected of people in that world. So I moved around and I moved around and I moved around. And, you know, I did YouTube. Now I'm making games, but video games is where I fit. There's sometimes I feel like I don't fit. But most of the time, and there are still enough people I have met through gaming, and there's a lot of crossover between gaming and comics. It's just, you know, gaming is where I ended up fitting best. Not perfectly, but best. And so I'm going to stick around here for a while. If you're constantly feeling invalidated, if you're constantly feeling like people are going to stick a knife in your back or falsely accuse you or not give you a chance, that is environmental. And that is something you do have a measure of control over. You don't want to be a crab in a bucket with all the other crabs, because they'll pull you down. And the nice thing about being an introvert or you know, and some people with autism tell me that they also they're okay with being alone in a way that they see neurotypical people not being. And so, hey, great, use that to find a group that will accept you. And I mean, the one commenter, it's funny. I thought both the commenters are great, but this one particular commenter who said that they're looking for legitimacy, I really enjoy interacting with them on Twitter. I really enjoy their comments on YouTube. And I feel like I need to do better if this person doesn't feel legitimate. So I'm going to keep that in mind and work towards that. And until there is Discord, and Patreons are going to get either first access to Discord, or eventually there's going to be a Patreon only part of the Discord. So help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.